The Skies of Lebanon, Le Havre, and El Zaman, El Baki. These three world cinema movies we will talk about in our video essay. We will give a short explanation of each movie, show the similarities between them, and finally explain why they are considered world cinema movies, and we'll end our video with a cooperation between the three films we chose.
Starting with Chloe Maslow, a French-Lebanese animator and a filmmaker who was born in 1983 in France. She studied in the Creative Arts School in Strasbourg. She focused more on animated filmmaking, which combined a number of different methods for making films. Her film, La Petite Caillou, won the César Award for the Best Short Film in 2015.
Following that success, she decided to make a long feature film, aiming to show her family's story and focusing more on her grandmother's story, who was Swiss and moved to Lebanon years before the Civil War. She also wanted to explain her idea about the love of a country and how hard it is to explain, since it is irrational, as she says.
Donc j'avais envie d'un personnage qui est très proche de celui de ma grand-mère, qui peut partir. Et donc elle a cette possibilité, mais elle refuse tout le temps de le faire. Parce que je voulais parler de cet attachement qu'on peut avoir à un pays qui n'est pas du tout raisonnable, qui n'est pas rationnel. Et c'est très dur d'en parler parce que ça n'a pas de raison, justement. C'est l'amour, ça ne s'explique pas tout le temps. Et l'amour pour un pays, c'est très dur d'en parler.
Elia Suleiman is a Palestinian actor and a filmmaker who has extensive experience in both directing and screenwriting. He was born in 1960 in Nablus, Palestine. He was also forced to leave his country in his early 20s, so he moved to New York City and lived there for a decade before coming back to Palestine to teach film and media at Beirut University, a trip which he showed in his film The Time That Remains, that is based in part on his father's diary. Not only in this film, but most of his films are similar in a way, since the Palestinian case is central to Elias Suleiman's artistic sensibility and the subject matter of many, if not all, of his films.
He started his filmmaking career with Introduction to the End of an Argument, and he is also known for his film Divine Intervention, and his last movie was It Must Be Heaven, a comedy based on his real life. As the story goes, we see him traveling from Palestine to New York after failing to live in Paris. The story is about his journey to find a producer for his new film.
I don't know if we choose what we do. I was brought up in a family that was quite tender and loving and very, very funny. And I was the youngest. And I think the humor just came from there, actually. It was not really a strategy at all. I have not watched, in fact, like particularly, comic films or anything like this.
So I smoke a lot and drink a lot, and I like people, and I'm partly human. And I'm a very fast filmmaker, faster than anybody.
Finally comes Le Havre's director, Aki Kaurismäki, the Finnish man who worked as a bricklayer, postman, and a dishwasher before starting his cinema career as a co-screenwriter and an actor with his older brother, Mika. He firstly played a role in Mika's film The Liar, and his first film as a director was Crime and Punishment. But he started being recognized internationally after his film in 1989, Leningrad Cowboys Go America. In the same year, he left Finland and went to Portugal because, as he said, in all of Helsinki, there is no place left where I could place my camera.
He is known for his comedies, or more as bleak comedy, as most of his movies are about people in poor conditions, such as The Girl from the Match Factory and The Other Side of Hope. But he always has a way to make the viewer laugh even in these situations. He might also be a believer in the Murphy laws that are basically explained as everything that could go wrong would go wrong. We could see this in most of his movies, as most of the characters are already having a miserable life, but it still gets worse, which somehow he makes it look funny.
Then I noticed that even if it's a serious Dostoevsky story, you shouldn't forget humor. So I took humor in right away. Life is intolerable without humor. It's intolerable with humor too.
First of all, they are not produced in Hollywood or any other mainstream cinema. None of the 3 movies we chose is in English. 3 of them use deadpan acting method, which isn't common in mainstream movies. In other words, the films are not Eurocentric, US-centric, commercial, mainstream, nor in English. The movies are shown in different film festivals around the world and even got awards in some of them, such as Le Havre in Cannes and The Time That Remains in Grenada film festivals. And also we can access the films only in festivals or some limited online platforms such as Mubi. They are not on Netflix, Disney Plus or HBO, for example.
Sur le ciel d'Alice, or Skies of Lebanon as it's known in English, is a film by the French-Lebanese director Chloé Maslow. It is about Alice, a Swiss young girl who goes to Lebanon under Au Pair program. She does not feel like she belongs in her homeland, and after moving to Lebanon, she meets a local charming space engineer. They fall in love and start their own little family. Life seems happy and colorful, especially with their little talented girl who is a pioneer artist. After a while, the civil war started to ruin their peace, and Mona, their daughter, decided to leave them and go to France following her fiancé.
Alice also wants to leave, but her husband does not like the idea since he is attached to his home and work, since he dreams of sending the first Lebanese to space. The film is the story of Chloe's grandmother who left Switzerland and went to Lebanon years before the Civil War. The film explains the story in a lovely way by using cheerful colors and music, and by its unique cinematography that shows that even through hard times, people could find a way to enjoy life and have some fun.
Al-Zaman Al-Baki, or The Time That Remains as it's translated in English. In this film, Elia tells us his story with the occupation within his father's story. As we see him, the father fought, and how he deals with the occupation at first, in the resistance days, then how he tries to live with it in the later years as he gets married and has a son, Elia, who is a little trouble himself, does not stop talking as a kid, and his words get him deported out of the country.
Eventually, he comes back as an old man in his 40s, talks less or does not talk at all, spends time with his mother, and just observes everything without any action or reaction. Elia, the director, tried to tell his father's story and the Palestinian story in the film, just like most of his films, which he explains when he says,
Finally, our last movie, Le Havre. Its name means the heaven in English. It means the shelter or the place where one is protected from a storm in the sea, for example. Which is exactly what happens in the movie as we see Idrissa, a young African refugee, trying to get reunited with his mother who escaped to London. He fails and gets to France instead. There he meets Marcel, who helps him and hides him from the authorities trying to capture him. Marcel himself has his own problems as he is already not in a good situation financially,
since he worked as a shoe shiner and hardly can afford a living, nor emotionally, since his loved wife is diagnosed with some dangerous disease that might cause him losing the love of his life. But she gets better at the end after Marcel is done saving Idrissa. She also gets saved from this disease. This was not Aki's only film about refugees, nor about people living hard lives in general. When asked about what inspired him to make the film, he answered,
Even though the films have different film languages, they show similarity in terms of the subjects they cover. All 3 of them talk about the effects of politics on people without focusing on the political issue itself, such as war, civil war, and refugee problems. Also, although the movies are about unpleasant events, the moods of the films are not actually very dramatic. They have an uplifting style of telling a horrible story.
Also, all 3 of them managed to make their points without suffocating the audience with tragedy. Another similarity that the movies share is that all of them have something from the director's life. We can see Elia in his own movie, and Alice as Chloe's grandmother, and Marcel's wife is inspired by Aki's wife, as he explained in his interview with The Guardian. In my last 3 films, the female characters are all my wife.